On ABC Grandstand Digital, The Clubhouse. The Clubhouse. With Patrick Foulkes.
Shontelle Stowers is one of Australia's rising sevens players, hailing from the Ratettes of Warringah Rugby Club. Warringah's sevens team is one of the most successful teams in the club's history, and last year they defeated Sydney University, a claim not too many rugby clubs across Sydney can make, in the final, and this was a Sydney Uni side that had not been defeated in 2 years. Shontelle joins me on the line now, but her focus is a little bit more abroad because she's about to go to Hong Kong to represent Australia in a sevens tournament there. Shontelle, welcome to the Clubhouse. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
So, Shontelle, you were recently meant to play in a tournament, Sevens by the Sea, and we know you've had some tough encounters. You're obviously a big member of the club. Do you have a love of club rugby as well as the Sevens style?
Warringah's got a really strong sevens season. They're always keen to get in all the local games or the local tournaments, the domestic tournaments that are there. I think this year, the Sevens by the Sea that just got rained out, we're going to have 2 teams, which is a lot better than the previous years. So it shows that their popularity is there and that Warringah has a lot of support in the sevens world.
And technically, I believe you're the most successful team that Warringah has ever produced. Does that give you a bit of bragging rights around the club if you ever want to pay out any of the guys?
I think it does. I think it definitely does. It's a great team, and the guys provide us a lot of support as well. So there's a bit of banter that goes around, but at the end of the day, everybody supports everybody, and the guys come along to a lot of our games, or they send out their best wishes when they know that we're going into a tournament, which is a really good atmosphere to be in.
Well, I guess the big question is, where did your love of sevens come? I know you're a New Zealander by birth, but eventually you made the right call and came over the ditch to Australia. Where did your love of sevens begin?
I only became familiar with sevens once I reached Australia. I'd always played 15s. I think I went to Hong Kong in 2010 for a Barbarians team, and from then on I was hooked.
It's such a fast-paced tournament, not just in terms of how the game's played, which is also fast-paced, but the way you guys travel. I mean, you've got Hong Kong next week, and that's going to be an exciting tournament, particularly with so much interest now rising in sevens because it's now an Olympic sport. Are you starting to feel the pressure a bit? Is there a bit more media attention heading your way that makes every win or loss that more important?
There's definitely a lot more media attention, especially with us being on the Olympics for 2016. There's always a lot of pressure because you're playing for a country, but I guess there's always a lot of pressure to win. You always want to be the best of the sport, so that's where I feel most of the pressure comes from. The
Hong Kong Sevens is also known as sort of like the sevens tournament that really kicked off sevens and made it so much more popular worldwide. And you actually made your debut there. And with Australia competing there next week, is there a sense of a bit of nervousness of you coming back to almost where your international sevens career began?
Always nervous when you go into an international forum. Playing in Hong Kong is massive. The atmosphere is crazy. When you get onto the field, you can barely hear the person standing next to you. It's just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Now, in terms of this tournament in Hong Kong, we should point out for our listeners that Australia has already qualified for the Rugby World Cup in both men's and women's, and in women, we're actually the defending champions. Something I'm sure that is a bit annoying for most New Zealanders who might be listening to the program. But Shontelle, does this tournament mean that you guys can experiment a bit more? Because in terms of your international, how you're going to qualify, you already have. So can you experiment with new and younger players or try new moves? I mean, What's the team attitude towards this tournament?
We've been developing the team for the last 2 years, so you would have seen on the circuit that there's not really a lot of common faces at each tournament. So we've got a good pipeline of new players, younger players, girls who are going to be ready for for the Olympics in 2016. So I guess we have been developing or using the opportunity to get out there and get new players on the circuit and new players game time.
So is that something that you'll be able to take forward from here? Because obviously everything now has got to be sort of building towards not only the Rugby World Cup, which is in Moscow in June, but, is there one eye on Rio in 2016?
Yeah, so the bigger picture is the Olympics in 2016. You want to start embedding a really good team, solid team with experience for 2016. But World Cup is the short-term goal. You definitely want to get a good ranking or a good placing in World Cup.
Well, we're ranked in about third or fourth at the moment, and that'll depend on how the rest of the tournaments go in the lead-up to Moscow. Obviously, after the Hong Kong Sevens, you've got your round 3 tournament in China, which does actually count for points in terms of your qualification. But you've already qualified for Moscow, and you are the defending champions. Are you guys feeling the pressure a bit?
Always feel the pressure. You've always got to pull results and be fast and fit and at your best. Pretty much with the women's sevens, because we've got a circuit now, it's almost majority of the year. So you don't really get much of a break to recover the body. So you've got to be at the top of your game all the time, which creates pressure. There's always a lot of younger girls who are fit and fast, and people who are always eager to get on the field as well. So that keeps you obviously motivated to keep as fit as you possibly can.
You've had some tight tussles in recent years with not only New Zealand, as you would expect, but also South Africa. So in terms of South Africa and what you've had with tight tussles, you've effectively been put in the same pool as them in Pool B. Does that make you a bit nervous?
It does. They're definitely a country who's come a long way. I think we played them in June last year. And we didn't actually play them. They were at a tournament that we got to watch them at. And the way that they've improved from them is amazing. So I can only imagine how much they're going to improve in another 3 or 4 months when it comes around to World Cup.
And you've got Ireland as well, which is a bit of a hoodoo team for Australian rugby teams in World Cups. We saw that in New Zealand in 2011 when Ireland beat Australia in the pool stages, and there's been so many tight tussles against the Irish over recent years. Are you worried about the girls from the Emerald Isle?
You've got to kind of put aside the worry and just make sure that you play the game the best of your ability. I know that Ireland has just beaten England in 15-side. So obviously there's a lot of fit, fast and strong girls because England's at the top at the moment. So yeah, I would say that we'd be nervous, but you've always got to put that aside. There's going to be nerves regardless.
Now, you mentioned the travel earlier, and obviously Sevens is becoming such a global powerhouse being in the Olympics. Do you find the travel hard? I mean, you travel a lot further than your average Super Rugby player would.
Yeah, I find travelling hard to juggle with work commitments because a lot of the girls have full-time roles. There's a lot of support. The company that I'm currently working for is very flexible and they want me to do the very best I can. They definitely acknowledge that playing for a country is something that not many people get to do. So they're very supportive there, which helps me obviously with the travel and the recovery when you come back and preparing for the next trip, which is never far away. So
in terms of in building for Moscow, I mean, obviously it's going to be interesting playing rugby in Russia, which is growing slowly in its love of the game. Are there any sort of niggling things we should know about with the Australian Sevens team as we build towards June?
No, we're just working on getting tighter and obviously building the team a solid foundation so that when we get on the field, all we have to do is worry about the game. So I guess working on your fitness and making sure that you're at the best possible, condition that you can be at. So when it comes down to the time that we need to play at World Cup, all we need to worry about is the end result.
Well, Shontelle, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you after not only a successful tournament in Hong Kong and China, but it'd be great to talk to you after maybe another World Cup win in Moscow. But thank you for joining me in the clubhouse today, and if you want to catch Shontelle, you might be able to find her at Warringah Rugby Club because she's part of the Ratette side there. But Shontelle, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.